Is that land? Christopher! Christopher Columbus, are you spotting land?
Happy Halloween. Here I am, taking over America's Mayor Live. I'm Christopher Columbus. I have with me my patroness, without whom you wouldn't be in America, Queen Isabella of Spain. Her husband, Ferdinand, was a little under the weather. They were known as the Catholic monarchs of Spain, and they organized Spain into one entire country. So one might regard Queen Isabella as the mother of Spain. They took Castile, from which she came, and Aragon, from which Ferdinand came, and put it together into one country, the great country of Spain. Also with me is my first May, Theodorus, who came from Greece and joined me very, very early in my. He's
a cartographer.
And shared, and is a great map maker. See the map back here? This map right back here. But he's made that one recently because he wanted to show me all the things that have happened since I made my voyages. Quite a few things have happened since then. But I am very, very proud of the fact that I'm the one who got it started. You know,
Admiral Columbus, do we expect the mayor, he doesn't like to miss the show, right? He doesn't miss shows, especially for parties and this sort of stuff. Do we expect to see him tonight?
Yes, well, he'll be here. He'll be here to do some of the show. But I have to say, I'm very appreciative of the mayor because he supports my statues and is not with all of those very, very, all those people. How do you describe those dirty people that tear? I see my statues being torn down, and the people who do it all seem like people who, I thought like in your century now, everybody like showered and things like that and worked. Like these people don't shower, they don't work, and they're paid by somebody. I mean, they're paid by somebody like called Soros.
It is
Scorpion.
It is Soros, but he is like a scorpion. He is not a good
Why
man.
do they want to tear down my statues? I tried.
I don't know. You were so brave when Ferdinand and I sent you along the Atlantic to find a fast route to Asia. You did it without hesitation. You and Theodorus and your whole crew. And you discovered the new Americas, which was, you really discovered the Caribbean countries. Hispaniola, which is now Haiti and the Dominican, and another Caribbean island. And you made 4 journeys that way.
Was it? This. So you see behind me, you would think that Theodorus, who makes maps, would be one of those who was a very, very zealous flat earth person. Well, the flat earth people were like the people who take down my statues. And the people, when you had your recent pandemic, who told you how to wear masks, and you had to be 6 feet apart, and then kept children out of school for 2 years instead of 2 weeks. You always have people like that.
Christopher, the society has gone downhill since you and I have left the earthly ways. They have regressed. But there are some people who are still true to being good, understanding civil liberties, and being brave and exploring new worlds and new technology. Now, the United States of America kind of lost that under Clinton. He gave away everything to other countries, but it's coming back. People are being creative, doing great things in the United States.
Who was the one called Biden who never signed his name? I would imagine that you and Ferdinand signed everything.
Ferdinand and I always put our seal, our mark on everything, and we were very proud to do it. This guy, Biden, people are so ashamed of him. They're calling it the dark days of the United States of America. They actually don't want want to say his name anymore.
Well, they have a president now who seems to travel the world more than me. Even though he has the benefit of a big plane, I wish I had a plane like that.
Well, we
I've
didn't
seen
really
pictures
know.
of his plane.
Several years after you,
Wow.
Leonardo da Vinci actually had concepts of an airplane.
Another Italian?
Yes, of course.
Oh, my.
Of course.
You should have been the Queen of Italy.
Marconi too. I know I should have been the Queen of Italy. But I am proud of my Spain, at least back then. Right
You
now,
did take
I don't
over.
like
You
it
did
very
take over
much.
Naples and Sicily for a while.
Oh yes,
And a lot of Italians.
Napoli.
A lot of
Napoli
Italians,
is a
like my
great
family,
area.
have some Spanish background.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
Christopher, you know, I'm claimed by the Italians. I'm claimed by the Spanish. I'm claimed by the Portuguese. I'm claimed by the Jewish. I'm claimed by even people I don't know about, and I'm very happy. I hope I'm part of all of them.
well, Christopher, again, Fernanda and I want to thank you for your bravery. I will try from the heavens to stop people from tearing down your statue. And because my husband and I are called the Catholic monarchs, I must go to church now and pray. Pray for the United States of America.
Well, we appreciate that very much, Your Highness. And here's my original little conception. We were very honored. You know, we have never had royalty here. And now that I have had you here, we'll have to do something very special with that chair. We've never had royalty here before. Well, God bless you. And thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity that you gave me. So we'll take a short break. And when we come back, we'll see if we can find Mayor Giuliani, who went off trick-or-treating, I think. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Yes, I am ready.
And welcome back, Christopher Columbus, filling in for Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Or are we now back to?
Well, we're back to Rudy Giuliani.
This is Mayor Giuliani in historical garb from the.
Cristoforo Columbus went off to have a beautiful dinner with the Queen and Ferdinand. And
I think President Trump caught wind.
It might very well be that
they're at Mar-a-Lago.
The president does not like to have heads of state here in Palm Beach without greeting them. So.
Yeah,
and they are very appreciative, and so is Christopher Columbus, because he also is in favor of keeping up the Christopher Columbus statues. He's not one of those ignorant, whatever they are, that want to take it down on the grounds that Christopher Columbus was some kind of a bad man. I mean, they put up statues to people who really are bad men. and they take down Christopher Columbus's statue.
Right.
Woo! Man, what a bunch of hypocrites.
Right.
Well, let's go back to the biggest thing that happened this week, since this is Friday, and that is, of course, the multiple agreements, capped off with the agreement with China that the president has done, all within this. I mean, think about Christopher Columbus traveling across this thing here, right?
Right.
The president. I mean, of course, he didn't have a ship, but he had. I mean, so he did 3 countries in 5 days.
Right.
Right. And he made agreements with 7 countries in 5 days, at least. All of them helpful agreements to the United States. Now, you can criticize any one of them in not getting every single thing on earth that you could get ever from that country, or vice versa. Nor did they get every single thing that they could ever get from the United States in that agreement. You never do. There was nothing about any of those treaties that isn't anything but positive, to a large extent, for both countries, which is the way a good agreement should be. It's the way a good agreement should be. A good agreement should be positive for both countries. And these were very good agreements. Now, for us, of course, a priority is rare earth minerals. It's a priority because it contains the numerous different ingredients that are used to produce the extraordinary amount of additional electricity and chips and other things that we're going to need. It's almost incomprehensible how much we're going to need. Before we even started thinking about artificial intelligence and quantum computing, well, I shouldn't say that, but artificial intelligence, when we just focused on electric cars, one of the problems is that if electric cars grew at the ridiculous level that had been established by Biden, all of the people who were involved in the climate scam, there wouldn't have been enough energy, not enough electricity. And by the way, in order to create that much electricity, you're going to have the same amount of carbon emissions that you get from fossil fuels. But now we have Gates telling us that climate change was all bullshit from the beginning. You knew that, didn't you? Sure you did. When Gore told you the Earth was going to end in 2010, I mean, how does anybody even invite him anywhere to speak after that? I mean, he isn't like a weatherman who got it wrong. He said the world was going to end. And you know, the other one, the poor girl, half the time, she looks confused. So I don't know that anybody takes her seriously, but she's had the world ending about 3-4 times, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how they're going to feel now that their big financier has decided that climate change is not a priority. It's not a priority. I mean, just a year or two ago, even the Pope, the last one and this one, sort of tells us Catholics that we're like committing a mortal sin if we don't do something about climate change. Right. I mean, I wonder how they feel. Don't they ever read science or? So one of the things that Gates says in his podcast is that there's a 10-time greater chance that you die from cold and heat. Do you know how old that is? Well, that goes back. I mean, I don't know how old that is, but for me, the first time I found that out was 2007. And it was in a book by Jan Lomberg. And Jan Lomberg also advised me when I ran for president. It was good enough to give me advice about climate, which was a very, very, very balanced advice. And if you read his books, they're all tremendously well sourced. So Gates repeated that the other day in his podcast. Like, he's just finding it out now. I mean, this guy has more money than anybody. And it took him 2 decades to figure out that if the earth got really warm, it really wouldn't be that dangerous. And he's just about there in saying that the fact is that we could accommodate ourselves to it. We could do what we do throughout the millennia, which is as the world changes, we adapt. And we're very good at that. And with all the money we have now, and all the money we were wasting on nothing just to make all these people multi-billionaires so they could fly around the world and emit even more carbon, which was supposed to kill us. Now, if we have a sensible policy and we stick to pollution, and we are humble enough to realize that the universe that God created, there's not that much we can do to it. It's really big. But in any event, this climate change thing will now, I think, come crashing down, as it always should. And I really do hope all the climatologists and scientists who propounded it, like all of the ones who got so many people killed during the pandemic with don't take ivermectin and don't take hydroxychloroquine, and you have to take the vaccine even if you're a baby.
Crazy.
Despite the fact that it now turns out, first it turned out the vaccine wasn't a vaccine because it didn't prevent the illness. Vaccines prevent the illness. This thing didn't prevent the illness. So then they went to, it makes the illness less. Well, then that turned out that wasn't true. Then they went to, there's less of a chance you'll get the illness again until the first stepmother, I don't know, she's had, she and Biden, it seems to me, have had COVID about 4 times each.
Right.
And they've probably had about 45 vaccines each.
Yeah.
So, it is interesting here. We did have Columbus Day, and I thought about doing this on Columbus Day, but then I needed to do something for Thanksgiving because I always do. And but Columbus is somebody to really focus on because he had to crack a stupid, ignorant proposition supported by like the New York Times as of that day, and all the rich people, and that theirs was flat. And the Times, of course, has been one of the biggest supporters of climate change. At times, they've calmed down in the last year or two, but not tremendously. But they've calmed down in the last year or two. But I mean, in the height of climate change, they were burning their hair. No, I didn't lose it that way. I lost it because of my genes, I think. My grandfather lost his hair too. And several of my uncles, not all of them, and my father had his hair until he died at 73, and my uncle Rudy until he died at 85. And my grandfather died probably in his 70s, and he was like me and one of my father's other brothers. So here's my wisdom on how we can put all of this together now that all the agreements are done. I don't know if an American diplomat has ever been able to accomplish so much in so short a period of time and executed so many brilliant strategies with so many levels of complexity. I say that Trump's diplomacy on these serious matters is like a Bach concerto. And I say it's like a Bach concerto because Bach concertos are contrapuntal. You know what that means? That means that they play 3, 4, 5,
right,
as many as 6 different themes of music at once and have them blend together. So you hear it as one, but the musicians are playing something different. And it all works. And the better it works, the harder it is to pull it apart. And if you really get into it, and at times in my life, I really did, particularly, probably in the last century or century and a half, where we had phonographs, and then discs, and then now we have digital, and we can go back and play over and over again. You really can train yourself to pick them all out. And once you do, you become a much greater, I think you get a much greater appreciation for music. But he has levels of complexity in his negotiations, so that he does one thing in order to create another, that will create another, that will create another, and it'll finally be where he wants to be. Right. So announcing the day before his meeting with Xi Jinping that we are going to start nuclear testing again. Now, of course, that was a part of one of the themes, right? Let's let China know, Russia is flexing its nuclear muscles. Russia has the most nukes, China the least of the three great powers. And we have a lot. But we have considerably better delivery systems than both of them combined and multiplied by 5. And they have nothing compared to even our not yet perfect defense system. So when he starts flexing his nuclear muscles, they're different. They're different. We have so many more strategic capacities that they don't have. And we have advantages that they don't have. And one of the things that he used just to get Putin's attention is, you may have these missiles that are supposed to be unable to be detected, and they're unable to be shot down, and they're unable to. Do you know what the nickname for them is in NATO? The missile that's been analyzed by Skyfall. The problem is they don't fly. They come down. They made the delivery system so big and so large. Look, neither one of those two countries have the capabilities that we have. They're not even close. Yeah, they got weapons, and yes, they can do a lot of damage. But look how Russia's fighting this war in Ukraine. They're fighting this war like it was the First World War in the trenches. It's like, let's fight the war by getting our people killed. Let's just throw them at them. That's what they're doing in Donetsk. There's a great article. It was in one of the foreign newspapers, I think, about how the Russians, fight a war like banging your head against a wall constantly. So they try to take the tremendous defensive position that Ukraine has developed in Donetsk, and probably half their losses have taken place there, and they keep banging their head against the same place. And that's the one they have finally asked for Ukraine to give them back, or give it to them rather, even though they didn't conquer it. I mean, Ukraine has, I don't think it's half, but Ukraine is probably, I think there's no doubt about this, Ukraine has probably killed more Russians in that area than any place else. And the Ukrainians don't even understand it. All they do is send them to try to come over the walls. And they shoot them. They kill them with drones, with $5 drones, $10 drones. They take a drone, they put a bomb on it, and they send it to the guy, boom, and it blows them up. They don't even necessarily use guns because the drone can follow them. It's like the drone will stay on them, and boom, there the guy gets blown up. And they keep doing it. He's repeating it and repeating it. This is why they needed the North Koreans came in, and they thought it was all going to be about shooting, so they started shooting. Except they were shooting the Russians because they look just like the Ukrainians. they sound the same too. And the North Koreans are, without any doubt, the most backward people in the world. I mean, those poor people are isolated completely with a one-channel television. No books other than ones that explain how important Fat Man is.
Right.
And now they're getting mercenaries, and they are conducting these really macabre situations where they offer people who are like alcoholics and criminals and or criminals who are out of jail. They offer them a great deal of money for their families if they go fight. It's like, you're going to leave your family destitute, but you can do something good in your life. You can go die in Ukraine, and your family will be taken care of forever. Right. It's kind of like the mafia did, right? The mafia would take care of the families forever.
Right.
I'm not sure how solid that commitment was. We'll ask Michael Francis next time we have him on. But one of the things that's happened as a result of the agreement with China. So you know what the basic part of the agreement is. I don't know that I have to go over it again. Might as well just run off the top lines of the deal. First, there's a 1-year pause in implementing the restrictions on rare earth and critical minerals. And it's beginning to become kind of maybe a realistic number. We might need a year extension on that. But I've never seen anyone collect as much of one thing so quickly as I have watching Donald Trump collecting rare earth. I mean, I imagine he's out tonight trick-or-treating for it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm Donald Trump, trick or treat. Give me some rare earth.
Right.
But he's going to have us at a point where we're not going to need it. He's also going to have us at a point where people are going to want to come to us for it. Because that's the other thing China has done. China has a monopoly not only on the rare earth, but also on some of the devices that are needed to convert it for the very, very complex uses that it can be used for. So this was a good extension. It takes care of a year. If we need another year, we still have the leverage points to get it, because this, to a large extent, came about with two leverage points of ours. One, soybeans. They need soybeans desperately, but they also know that we need them to buy soybeans from us because of our farmers. So it's the leverage is not as strong as the other side. But then we can throw a few other things into it, right? Like the 100% tariff, which was killing them. So you put both those things together, and we have the leverage to put them in such a position that they have to negotiate with us. We're also still massively larger than their economy. By that, we are, if you use their numbers and our numbers, which are, audited and accurate, and you go to jail if they're wrong, we are at least, and I may be even off on this, I'm going to give you a conservative estimate, 2.5 times larger economy than theirs. For gross, for considerably less people. Per capita, we're about a 10 times greater economy than them. And although we have a problem of debt in our economy, they have a problem of massive poverty in their economy, like hundreds of millions of people. We don't have poverty. as you would define it outside of this hemisphere. And of course, we have issues like people who need SNAP. But if you were to compare them to people in China, the people who need SNAP, who need food stamps and whatever, oh gosh, I bet most of them have cell phones, right? I bet they have televisions. Wouldn't be surprised if they have some kind of computers. You know, people come from the third world here and look at our, they would consider our people in poverty almost like middle class. If you've ever seen poverty in India or in parts of Asia, even in South America, except for Haiti, the poverty is not as bad as there. It's often been said that Haiti is the Western Hemisphere country with the real third world poverty. If you want to experience third world poverty, go to Haiti, and you'll feel like you're in parts of India. And I should even use India, because I was in India 20, 30 years ago, and India is a country that has become larger than China. Its economy is not as big yet, but it is moving itself out of poverty in a much more determined and sensible way. So it is not inconceivable that over a period of 20 or 30 years, India could be the second biggest economy in the world, right, and not China. They have a much better structured government for the development of wealth, because they're not a socialist government. They're a capitalist government. And there's no comparison between the wealth creation in a capitalist country and the wealth creation in a socialist country. Socialist countries create great wealth, but it's concentrated in the hands of far fewer people than in a sounds strange to you, right? Who's the richest man in Russia, Ted?
Vladimir Putin.
People think he's the richest man in the world. Who's the richest man in China?
President Xi.
Yeah.
Chairman Xi Jinping.
Who was the richest man in Cuba? Who was the richest person in Black Lives Matter? Patrice Cullors.
The leader, quote unquote leader.
They are trained to be completely amoral.
Absolutely.
You can lie, you can cheat, and you can steal and take anything you want because you're the leader. You're in the party,
right?
So you have 100 million, maybe 110 million very, very privileged people, kind of like the New York Times editorial board in Hollywood.
Right.
That's the Communist Party.
Yeah.
And then you have all the deplorables that are the poor Chinese people. Now, some of that has changed. There has been progress. There is a middle and upper middle class, and even a wealthy in China that aren't communists, not quite at the level of communists, and not protected the way. I mean, they could have that wealth taken from them in a second, and it happens. But there's still, and you can't get good numbers out of China. But if we look at the whole population of China, and we were to say that half have come out of poverty, and the other half are in third world, starving type poverty, disease-ridden, starving type poverty, that would be a pretty close to correct estimate. And in assessing its wealth, comparative wealth, there isn't really a good way to quantify what's the difference between a country that has fewer people like America, 370 million, but without that kind of poverty. That problem already solved, already with an economy that's 2.5 times the size of China. So is it a pipe dream that they can catch us? Didn't seem that way 10 years ago, but it does seem that way now, that their economy is in very, very bad shape, that Trump is running rings around them. And look what he just did to them with their natural allies who actually, over the centuries really have hated them. Vietnam, Cambodia, right? Malaysia. These are all countries that China has been to them what some people in South America feel about America,
right,
but much worse. People in South America would come to Vietnam and find out what the Chinese have done to the Vietnamese. They would say, "Thank God we're in the Americas."
right.
So this agreement is a terrific agreement because it doesn't solve our problems, but it gives us a modus vivendi. Modus vivendi is like an agreement so both sides can live to fight another day, and maybe fight economically, not militarily, because I think if things are guided correctly, that's the way it'll happen. This will be an economic battle between the United States and China. And if you look at what Trump has accomplished in the last 7 months and what he's added to our economy and what Xi Jinping has added to his economy, God, he's kicking his ass like unbelievable. If it were a war, it'd be over by now. He just embarrassed the hell out of him with 4 countries right around him who are giving money to the United States.
Right.
And then the others, Japan and South Korea, of course, are allies of ours. But they did have some hopes with South Korea, with this new fellow who was elected. But Trump looks like, poop, poop, I got him. He's my guy. And the one in Japan, I mean, that lady, God had to create her for us. I mean, she's going to be our Margaret Thatcher. Because I was a kid studying geography and history, which I've always loved. That's why I love that map back there. I always thought of England and Japan as similar. An island off a big continent. And the island very often is more powerful than the continent. I mean, you think about it, England was the dominant navy in the world.
Right. Yes.
After the Great Navy, I mean, until the Spanish. Well, the Spanish were
the Portuguese.
The Spanish and the Portuguese. Portuguese could never really match the Spanish because they're much smaller, but they were certainly clever and very, very smart, and figured out how to work in the areas that Spain wasn't.
Right.
And also created an alliance with England.
Right.
So England and Portugal are very, very close, even though the demarcation line for enemies then, when Henry VIII became a Protestant country, was Catholicism and Protestantism. And Portugal and Spain are very, very Catholic countries. So they were supposed to be allies, like Spain and France and
right.
Austria, which is Catholic, and the southern part of Germany, which is Catholic, and the northern part of Germany is Protestant. And that alliance under the Holy Roman Emperor worked pretty well, except for Spain and Portugal.
Yep.
Portugal stayed with England, and it's the reason why they have such good port. After we take a break, I'll tell you why they have such good port.
Portugal, port.
But port is a British. Port is actually a British creation.
Oh,
made in Portugal.
Well,
and
that checks out. That makes sense.
It's made in Portugal because they have the best caves, the best natural caves for making it. And the English always liked the English, and most of the naval people. I would imagine Columbus. They really enjoyed a semi-liqueur. Really, they liked alcohol with a bit of a sweet taste. Not like a complete liqueur, but
yeah.
And port wine can naturally create that.
Right.
And the greatest port wines are all from one place, of course, Oporto, which is in northern Portugal. And the other city, I forgot what the name of the other city on the other side are. And the caves are up and down the river. the caves in which, and that's where the English came, Taylor Port being the biggest one, Taylor Port in Portugal. And the families have been there for 400 years. And they still send their children to be educated in England. Mm-hmm. So if you go to Oporto in that part of Portugal, which I recommend highly, mm-hmm. because it's a beautiful place to go, you will meet many, many English-speaking people who are Portuguese and running the great port companies.
Right. Well,
I wonder how we got to take a look at how Portugal is doing with communist Spain. The guy running Spain has got to get chased out at some point. Well, that's going to bring me, we did China. That's going to bring me other place that I'm really, really interested in. Well, and that's Venezuela. Because I had a certain amount of involvement with Guaido and that whole situation, where it got very, very close to Maduro leaving. And I don't know, and I'm going to have to check before I say anything about it, how much of what I know is classified and how much isn't. But in any event, I think a lot of it is still, because I haven't read it anywhere. But in any event, we did come pretty close under Trump last time of getting rid of Maduro. And there are some people, including Republicans, who have become isolationists, and they even oppose this. You know, why are we bombing him, and why are we doing this, and why are we doing that? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of reasons. The most obvious is his tremendous involvement in the drug and in the illegal alien trade. He is more than probably any other place, except for the terrorists and the human traffickers, who use illegal immigration for a strategic purpose. And he is doing a complete copy of his hero Castro with the Mariolito boat lift. And he's doing what any shrewd dictator would do, who has a lot of dissatisfied and poor people in his country and a lot of criminals. Jimmy Carter said in 1978, I think it was, "I'll take all the Cubans." Castro said, "Okay, jackass, you want all the Cubans? I'll give you 100,000 of the Cubans that you really want, so that you don't catch on right away. And you think this is a wonderful thing, and you keep it going. But I'll get rid of everybody in jails and prisons and insane asylums, including the criminally insane." And he did. So we sent over 100,000 really good, wonderful people who have done great things for America.
Right.
Cubans are one of the greatest immigration stories that we have, and we have some really great immigration stories. They also were about 30,000 people, not just taken from prisons. He didn't bother to send his minor criminals here. He sent people that were like the ones we have walking around New York now, because we let them out of mental hospitals. They came from the Cuban mental hospitals. Now, I know this personally because I was put in charge of it. As the Associate Attorney General, I came into this catastrophe created by Carter. The Mariolitos and the Haitian, unbelievable numbers of Haitians, 100,000 a month were coming in. And we had to stop it, and we did. And we stopped it very, very similar to the way Trump did. We sent the Coast Guard off the coast of Haiti, and we stopped them. And we did their asylum determination on that boat. And if they didn't meet the regulations for asylum, they were sent right back to Haiti. And even to bolster our case, we got the Haitian government to agree to allow us to have State Department people check up on them periodically. That was a term in the agreement that the geniuses at the State Department thought we could never get because it gave up so much sovereignty. And I said we could. And I said I'd get it. And I did. Got it from Baby Doc. And it stopped. Yeah, that was a much minor, that was like a little example of what happened in massive numbers with Biden. And Venezuela probably took advantage of that to our disadvantage more than any other country. In sending their criminals, they're poor degenerates here. How many? I mean, when you think of the crimes that are committed, this is probably not correct, but it almost seems like about half of them are Venezuelan aliens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the horrible rapes and murders, the Tren de Aragua, taking over cities. So that's one part of Maduro. Another part of Maduro is for years, even before this, he was indicted in the Southern District of New York as being the head of a drug cartel. He's not just the president of the country. Unlike Mexico, where the cartels are alleged to run the country, and there's some truth to that, and there's some exaggeration of that, and it isn't that they run the country. They do run Venezuela. This is like, Genovese being in charge of America, right? Plus, he's a communist and a big friend of China and a big friend of Russia, and alleged to be either taking in and secreting weapons from them, or certainly being willing to develop ports for China so they can be, almost as close to us as Bagram Air Base was to them until Biden gave it up. I'll never, ever forgive him for that. Ever. But they are a serious, serious threat to the national security of the United States. And their presence also creates an effect. From the time Chavez turned them into a communist country, took a country that could have been one of the wealthiest in the hemisphere into an impoverished country. There are other countries that follow that lead. I mean, in Colombia, which I worked with for years, and it was as capitalist a country as you're going to find. They're run by a miserable communist now who's constantly opposing us, and who the hell knows what he'll do with China and Russia. There is great wisdom to the Monroe Doctrine. And so I would say on several levels, the president is absolutely right in doing what he's doing with Venezuela. And it is not a war. It doesn't rise to the level of a war. We are entitled to stop the drug dealers before they get here. And that whole communist government is so intertwined with drug dealing that it's hard to. I don't know if there's I don't know if there's somebody there who's a big level swinging dick communist who isn't a drug dealer or getting money from the drug dealers or protecting them. It's too much a part of the Maduro society. And he is hated in the country. And he was voted out of office, and they fixed the election. And it's really interesting who fixed the election. Wait until you find that out. So what he's doing right now is so beneficial to the security of the United States. No one's ever really attempted to do this with drugs and really knock them out. Knock them out before they get here. They say, well, the drugs only exist because of the demand in the United States. It's supply and demand. That's a simplification of the worst kind. Because as we have found out with the legalization of marijuana, the more you create supply, the more demand you get for something that's illicit like that, or with gambling, like we discussed with Michael Francis. I warned for years that if you legalize cannabis, you're going to double the amount of cannabis use, and it'll be the best thing that ever happened for organized crime. If you legalize gambling, same thing. Because you will create a much larger number of users. Because by giving it approbation and by giving it and not putting a barrier to it, you do get a lot of people. You concentrate on the people that aren't stopped from using drugs because it's illegal to the extent that it's illegal anymore. And you don't realize that there are a lot of people like that. And the minute you legalize it, they're going to try it. Well, that triples the amount of people using it. So you get the overdoses go up by 2 and 3 times. The accidents on the highways go up.
Right.
That's what you have going on in Oregon and Washington. In New York, where Adams and others and Cuomo, I think, passed this law and allowed for New York to have legal marijuana distribution shops. So here we are 4, 5, 6 years later. We got about 100 legal marijuana distribution shops and about 2,000 illegal. And then we got the mob, various mobs, including the Mexican cartels, distributing drugs, out of their cars and from their apartments and from their hotels. And the illegal business dwarfs the legal business. And the illegal business is a hell of a lot bigger than it was before we legalized. When do we learn? These are common sense principles. And I think these principles have been eroded because of communism, because communism wants to destroy us. So the shutdown, I don't know where we're going with the shutdown, Ted, but today, I think it was today, the vice president and our friend who was on the other night, Secretary Duffy, say that if we go into November, we really are going to start talking about air disasters because the air traffic control situation is getting worse and worse. Look, it wasn't ideal before. Now you have people not being paid. Therefore, some people show up, some don't, and some quit. And I don't know that we have the room for, if you or I quit, we couldn't have a show. Well, they're almost at that point.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing. We had Secretary Sean Duffy on yesterday. Maybe we can.
Doesn't he look good as Theodorus? Maybe we'll do a play.
Some chest hair.
What do you think? You think somebody wanted to do a play about Columbus and
we could do it?
Maria could play Isabella.
We just got to.
And I could play Columbus, and you could play his first mate.
Yeah.
And we'll get a Ferdinand. We'll get somebody to be Ferdinand.
Right. Absolutely.
And we could do like a comedy type thing.
That would be a lot of fun.
Like Columbus comes back and sees all his statues down.
Right.
And how does he react to it?
Right. That would be
then
good.
He goes and talks to all the Italian people. You can't imagine how the Italian communities have said about this.
Right.
And, Italians are fun. They really are. They are funny. But, that statue on Columbus Circle, I don't care. What? You're not taking that down.
Yeah.
Even with the Italians being considerably more gentrified, and a lot of them have moved out. As we found out with the indictment, there are still some of them left. They're not going to let you think that. That's where Joe Colombo was shot. The mob loved that statue. The mob loved that statue. Part of their guilt mechanism is they're very, very they're very loyal Catholics. They give a tremendous amount of money to the church. I mean, I can take you to a church in East Harlem with a statue. It's like it used to be really run down at one time. Because of me, it's not anymore, the area. But it used to be really run down, all kinds of crimes. The statues in the church were worth millions of dollars. And nobody touched them because they kill you. I don't know, you would not remember this, but 2 nuns got raped in East Harlem. And the cops, tried really hard to catch them. Yeah, they got the bodies delivered to the police station of the rapists. The mafia guys got them, and I think there were 2 or 3. Killed them, did a couple of other things to get the point across, and dropped them off at the precinct. Now, I don't know how hard the cops worked to find these guys.
Right.
And they were never on my list to catch. And I tried to catch everybody for everything that the mafia did. And anytime I would ask about that, the PD would just, the what? So Schumer now wants a vote just on SNAP. So he wants to say, you got to give the money for food stamps and everything else out. And they have a Democrat judge who says the Agriculture Department has to give that money out, even though it comes from the emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
When the emergency has more to do with physical disasters that occur in this country.
Right.
And then we'll have nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. When we need it.
We'll have nothing there if we have another pandemic or something like that.
When we need it.
Or we have a tremendous hurricane or whatever. But in any event, I don't know how the court could make that determination. Once again, it's the court playing president.
Right.
These are legislative and executive decisions. And if the executive and the legislative branch can't agree on the money, a court cannot decide there's nothing in the Constitution that gives the court any discretion with regard to the budget of the United States. And, but in any event, they got a Democrat judge to just do what Democrat judges do now. I mean, I don't know if you can, every once in a while, I really want to write a letter to a Democrat judge who reaches a neutral opinion. I think they should be in Profiles in Courage. There've been a couple. Even the judge who let me out of the J6 case, me and a guy who really was terribly treated, really terribly treated, and that's Donald Trump Jr. I mean, they used him during the first investigation of the president to terrorize the president. They knew they couldn't get to him, trying to scare him about indicting him. And then every couple of weeks, they put out a rumor they were going to indict him. Now, I knew the whole case. They never had an indictable case against him. The thing they were going to try to indict him for isn't a crime. They eventually even concluded put in a footnote that it wasn't a crime. I knew it wasn't a crime. They knew it wasn't a crime. And they were constantly saying in 2 weeks or in a week or in 2 days, he's going to be arrested. And the president at first would get really upset. And I think they were hoping he'd make some kind of mistake. And of course, I knew he wouldn't make a mistake. I was just more concerned about him as his friend. But this is the kind of things they did that were cruel. And I was a prosecutor, and I did some really difficult things, but I don't think I did any cruel. These are really sick people, and they really should be investigated. And now with this new revelation about all the additional Republicans that they got their numbers and tried to involve them, I can't quite grasp completely what Smith was trying to do. Was he trying to input? And he got my name, so I feel I'm glad. I mean, I would have felt left out. But I was dismissed by a judge from the J6 case. The judge looked at what I said, and he said they took his comments out of context and almost said, as much as I would like to hold him liable, he didn't say anything that had anything to do with inciting a riot. And they took the one thing that I did say, and they just misconstrued it completely. I said, let's have a trial by fire. Well, that sounds terrible if I just say it by that way, right? I don't know that that's going to incite a riot if I said it. I said it. They didn't jump up and down, yell and scream and say, let's go, burn down the Capitol. In fact, they sat in their seats and modestly applauded, or I think they modestly applauded because you couldn't hear the applause. They all had gloves on. But they certainly didn't go wild like these Democrats do and, start talking about killing people. But in any event, here's what they left out. That's preceded by, and it is followed by, an explanation that we should have 2 machines. And I'll get the machine that we tested, and they bring in their machine, and let's see what happens. Can the machine be accessed by internet, which the president of the company testified under oath couldn't be done? And can you change the vote? And the answer to both is yes. And not only did I see it done on demonstrations, but this is the thing that's extraordinary. It's in the manual. It's in the manual for the instructions for the machine. But they went around saying it, and nobody contradicted them, and the press didn't contradict them, and they sued all these people. And amazing, huh? So let's hope this shutdown gets to a point that it's over. I think. Question is, Ted, there's J.D. Vance was up at Congress today trying to keep them from doing. Senator Johnson, I think, has a bill that that at first it would pay the essential people. Now it's going to pay everyone,
right,
of the workers, and there's both he and it sounds to me like Thune would like to pass it. On the other hand, Vance and a whole other group of other people say you can't cave. Of course, it can be passed if they just do the normal resolution. All they have to do is vote for the CR that they voted for 13 other times. And have voted against 13 times now.
Right.
Because there's a Republican. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
You can't vary from that, because the minute you start making exceptions, then the Democrats are going to look like they really didn't cause this.
Right.
On the other hand, so one of them, I forgot who said this, maybe Pence. I'm sorry, not Pence. The majority leader.
Thune.
Yeah, Thune said, well, we may bring it to the floor before the election, which is, of course, coming up. I think there's a great deal of concern that it could have an effect on Virginia.
Right.
And that in Virginia, if they block the money for the federal workers, and the Republicans block that, even though that might not affect the body politic completely, it's going to affect the federal workers.
Right.
And a state that they have a good chance, I think, of winning.
Agreed.
They could blow.
That's right.
That's a tough one. I don't know. This is like a week ago going through examining my conscience about Cuomo and Mondami and Sliwa.
Right.
I don't know what the right answer to that. That's one of the great ethical. Geez, if I ever taught ethics in politics, which is almost a contradiction, right? If I ever taught ethics in politics, I would use this would be a great little class, wouldn't it? What would you do here? You know, you have the right thing to do is to try to get them or to stick with getting them to do the continuing resolution, so they can't do this kind of extortion in the future. But you do have an election, and if you can get a second Republican administration in Virginia, you could start changing the place. I mean, that's the way we change places. That's the way we've turned states into very, very red states, because we govern so much better.
Right.
I mean, he was so much better a governor than any of the governors they had.
Well, usually mild-mannered Senator Thune, had some strong words for his Democrat counterparts.
I'll tell you what, I don't think he wants to do this. John Thune knows you shouldn't do this. He also knows the dilemma. The guy's is in a terrible dilemma. Do you try to win Virginia, which has a long-term impact, or do you stick with principle, which also has long-term impact? I mean, it's really tough.
Here's the senator.
Yeah, I love seeing them like this, by the way.
You voted no 13 times. And we've tried to do that 13 times. You voted no 13 times. This isn't a political game. These are real people's lives that we're talking about. And you all have just figured out, 29 days in, that, oh, there might be some consequences. There are people who run out of money. Yeah, we're 29 days in. And they've done their best to make sure that a lot of these programs are funded. But at some point, the government runs out of money. 13 times, people over here voted to fund SNAP. 13 times they voted to fund WIC. My aching back. Finally realized this thing has consequences.
And we're back.
Well, before we leave you know that background, Ted?
Yeah.
Theodorus, whatever.
Mayor?
May I say that background really does qualify you as a great cartographer. You may not have drawn it, but you certainly selected it. Let's see it again. Look at that. Look at that background. Oh my God. Look at that. Wow.
Goes well with your outfit. I wanted a map of the world with on parchment. Yeah.
This
is the new world behind your head. Portugal and Spain are
No.
right above your head. Don't twist yet. I don't think. I don't think you're allowed to twist yet.
Africa. There's the Africa. There's
Asia.
There's the Asia part. There's the Africa part. That's where but this, I can do this. This is where I landed right there. And then Vespucci did that one. Another Italian like me.
Right.
Isn't that great?
That was awesome.
An Italian discovers the Americas, and an Italian discovers America, because all of our grandfathers, in my case, grandfathers, great grandfathers would say, America, America, we love America. My grandfather during the Second World War, and all of his kids fought, right? Second World War. Italy was in the Second World War. So he had his paisans. Italians get together a lot, and probably not so much now because they all lived in towns, and they were more like they're a younger nation than America. So they're like Neapolitan or Florentine or Tuscan or Sicilian or Calabrian or whatever, right?
Right.
So when they came to America, they stayed in that little group for a while. So they'd all meet and talk, and when the Second World War was coming around, some of my grandfather's countrymen were saying, "Oh, I don't know if we shouldn't go back. America would be at war." And my grandfather said, "You want to go back? I'll give you the money. Go back. You can't figure out this place is better. What are you, crazy?" And he didn't say it that way. What are you, crazy? Are you stupid? Stupido? We came here, and look what we got here. We have anything like that in Italy? No. So he was an American, and reflected in the fact, and it wasn't just Italians. We've got all kinds of ethnic groups. My parents, who were brought up by parents who were born in Italy, never learned Italian. We're not allowed to speak Italian. I understood Italian better than my parents and there is a certain thing where they felt bad in a way because they really, much easier to learn a language when you're young. But the idea of assimilating was so strong. I think this was true of the Germans. I think this was true of the Polish. It wasn't true of the English and the Irish because they understood it. They spoke a little different English, but enough so they could be understood, right?
Yep.
But for the Italians, for the Latinos, from the Spanish, learning English was like both grandmothers who were born in Italy spoke completely perfect English without the slightest bit of an accent. My grandfathers, both of whom, one of whom died before I was born and one of whom died shortly after I was born, had fairly heavy accents. And my mother always believed, who was a linguist, always believed that women did languages better than men.
Yeah.
She said among the Italians that she knew, and some of the other ethnic groups, she grew up in a neighborhood that was Italian and Polish. And so even among the Polish, the men hung on to the accents much more than the women.
Right.
Don't know if it's true because I've seen a lot of Italian men who speak perfect, from Italy, speak perfect English. But
Right.
Well, let's see, is there anything I've left out? Arctic frost we talked about, right? And Nigeria, I think we commended the president for recognizing the slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. And what that tells me is he's going to do something about it. But I also want to put Sudan in his mind, because Sudan's really a tragedy. I mean, they split that country up between North and South so that the Muslims would stop killing the Christians. And now they're doing it again. And I mean, I don't know. Look, I don't have any desire to create any anger against anybody unless it's got to be to recognize that they want to kill you. The Muslims have a significant group of people who want to kill Christians and Jews. It isn't a small group of people. It is not every Muslim. It's not a majority of Muslims. But it's significant enough so that they're slaughtering Christians and Jews. And from my point of view, the condemnation of that by the good Muslims is not as strong as it should be. Nor was the condemnation by Italians of the mafia until the end. I got a lot of criticism as an Italian American going after the mafia. You want to make your reputation on your own people. They weren't my own people. My own people are honest Americans. They weren't my own people. When I ran in 1989, the only place they threw a tomato at me was in the Italian section of the Bronx. Right. Unfortunately, they had a police officer instead of me because they didn't have great aim, thank God. So it's time we face it. And I wish we had time, maybe we'll do it tomorrow, to listen to Bill Maher reaction to Kamala, and her explanation of why she didn't think that Biden was incompetent. I would have thought the better explanation is, Bill, I'm pretty special too, and how would I notice?
Right.
I mean, I'm not exactly smart. So what do you want me to discover another person like me? I mean, he was always dumb as hell. I'm dumb as hell. So I don't know if he was just being dumb or demented. That's the real explanation, I think, for Kamala. But she gave a different one. So shall we play that one tomorrow night?
Yeah, let's see if we can find it tomorrow.
We're going to go watch the baseball game. And the question is this going to be a 6 or a 7-game World Series? Right. Have you peeked at the score?
I have, Mayor.
So tell me what it is. So we're both on the same page when we predict you.
Well, we're going to send people over to Dr. Maria.
And what's the score?
I'm going to bring up the score here. I have all these windows open throughout the show. But we want to remind people to first go over to Dr. Maria.
Absolutely.
So check her out. She's got a great show
Who
tonight.
wins this game?
And then we'll head over to the
Los Angeles.
LA.
Like
LA is up 3-1 in the top of the fourth. So
they're saying, oh, you should be for LA because it's America and the other place is Canada. All the players are from America. So what's the difference? And who does more damage to the United States, LA or Canada? LA. So now you go to Dr. Maria. Her show is fabulous. You saw her before. No, you saw Isabella. Now you'll see Dr. Maria. It's a great show, and she's dressed up in that beautiful costume. So go over to Lindell TV and come back to us tomorrow. And you can please pray for all the people in jeopardy, huh? And pray for the president that he makes wise decisions for us. And thank God that he guided and gave the courage to those people, including Columbus, who came across that ocean and founded us. That was an act of God. The greatest country on earth. Don't you let anybody tell you any different. And that is an academic, intellectual decision. God bless America. Yeah.
I want to get a picture of you with your hat.
Okay. That's my hat.
And then we're going to have somebody take one of the three.
Yeah.
Very powerful, very strong country, China. And what can I say? We have, it was an outstanding group of decisions, I think, that was made. A lot of decisions were made. There wasn't too much left out there. And we've come to conclusion on many very important points, and we'll be handing that to you in a little while. We're having, because there was a lot of different things, many of them very important. We're in agreement on so many elements, large amounts, tremendous amounts of the soybeans and other farm products are going to be purchased immediately, starting immediately. If you notice, President Xi authorized yesterday for China to start, did you know that, right? China to start buying in very large quantities of soybeans and other things, which I appreciated. That was a very nice gesture. And many other things like that. On fentanyl, we agreed that he was going to work very hard to stop the flow. It's a very complex subject because it's used for lots of different reasons, including anesthetics and things. But he's going to work very hard on it, precursors, and I think you're going to see some real action taken. I've agreed, as you know, I put a 20% tariff on China because of the fentanyl coming in, which is it's a big tariff. And based on his statements today, I reduced it by 10%, so it's 10% instead of 20%, effective immediately.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. It was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply